Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
At the end of the day, we are all selling ourselves,
Yes.
right? Are selling ourselves, the result, the outcome, the journey, the experience, all those things. It's not the tangible thing that someone actually does. So I think what's missed is really understanding that sales is a transfer of emotions between two people. That's really all it is.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on visibility strategies for women entrepreneurs. If you want to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice and business, you're in the right place. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Marcia Spurk, and I'm your host, professional singer and visibility strategist. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode.
Tired of procrastination, perfectionism, and self-sabotage? The Yes Code by Carol Look is your guide to transforming sabotage into success. Learn powerful tools to release your fears and finally live the life of your dreams. Get your copy today and say yes to transformation at carollook.com.
Hi, Terri. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Marta. Thank you, honey, for having me. So excited to be here with you.
Yes, I am so excited to hear more about your story. But first, tell us who you are and what you do.
God, I love this. Terri Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of Terri Ross Consulting, which is a healthcare consulting business in the medical aesthetic space, really helping aesthetic practice owners and managers build a sustainable, profitable medical practice.
So good. Yeah. But we got to take it back several notches and hear how you got into this. What were the beginnings of this?
Yeah, I love it. And again, thank you for having me. I love what you're all about in your podcast and who you serve and what you do. Gosh, it was a long journey. You know, I wanted to be a doctor when I was a little girl. I was born and raised in the Midwest. I live in Los Angeles now, and put myself through medical school and realized that I didn't enjoy that part of it, but I loved the business. So I basically spent my career working in Fortune 500, leading sales teams for big device companies. So I've studied sales and psychology and why people buy things in my career. And I had a baby a little bit later in life through a couple rounds of fertility. And then I started my consulting company in 2012. And that was out of me working for device companies in plastic surgery and medical aesthetics. It was really when the med spa boom was starting. Okay. So, you know, as women entrepreneurs, I've grinded, right? I've had to, go up against this whole male-dominated industry, kind of figure out my path and my voice. But that's what I do. I serve these practices and I've built my career along the way.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that you didn't, learn that this is what you wanted to do right off the bat. We go through so many different iterations, and my husband always jokes, he's like, what's the next evolution?
Right. I mean, well, listen, I think us hustlers, right, we get, right, our type A, we get bored fast. And I'm like, all right, like, what's our next thing? So
true. Yeah. So it goes through phases, and that's the thing. We take action. And then we figure out, we get clarity, because action brings clarity. And then we figure out that's not really the path. And then we start seeing a need, and we're like, I could monetize this, or I could support people this way. So I appreciate you sharing the journey. Now, being in this industry and knowing so much about it, what is the biggest mistake that you see aesthetic practice owners make when they're growing their business?
Such a great question. And this is truly my life's work. The biggest mistakes are people go to medical school, right? So whether you're an NP, a PA, an RN, whether you are a medical provider, a doctor, a surgeon, you're not taught the business side of medicine. And so you graduate, you figure out your path. You either work in a hospital or, get a brick and mortar and, figure it out like through talking to people. But in aesthetics, it's cash-based medicine. And so I know you're in Denver, I'm in Los Angeles, a highly competitive environment. And on every corner, there's a med spa or getting plastic surgery. So like the business is real. This is not a joke. And if people want a sustainable practice, that is the biggest mistake. They just go out, get equipment, buy a place, don't have any goals or a forecast, don't understand the benchmarks of what the business should do, hire a team, don't compensate right. I mean, it's kind of a hot mess, to be honest. And they're functioning, and some of them are very successful in spite of themselves, which is amazing. But I'm like, there is a real process to doing this. And if you knew what that framework could be, I can help you save time and money.
Okay. Well, and this, like you were saying, it happens in so many different industries, right? People focus so much on the craft, but they don't realize that it's business. So you need to
Right.
have a plan. And if
Yeah.
you're not developing it, then somebody needs to be developing it. And then they just get lost. And I love that you said some people do well in spite of themselves.
Yeah. Right.
Typically, if you don't have a plan, it's not going to work out because just that's just how it works. So what
Yeah.
is this framework? What is this system that you help people with? Can you share a few steps with us so we can understand?
Yeah, we audit every business. I think this goes for anyone in
Yep.
any business, right? We audit the practice and we write clients a formal business report. And it's really around, Marta, we've identified sort of the 5 bubbles. And it's really around revenue optimization, team performance, financial literacy, and culture and leadership.
Okay.
Now, obviously, among those bubbles are many things, but once we identify, is this particular practice marketing the right services that yield the highest gross profit, right? For example, people want to go get laser hair removal. That's fine, but that's not a profitable treatment, right? Where lasers or injectables are.
Okay.
So things, and I'm not trying to crash somebody's bubble if that's their dream vision. But I think what happens is people will open up a medical spa and there's about 17% opening up every year, which is a lot. So there's a lot of non-cores, meaning internal medicine, family practice. People are trying to get in. Insurance spaces aren't covering so much. So, so we'll look at the framework. So we'll look at their square footage. We'll look at how they're compensating their team. We'll identify the services they're offering. Figuring out what yields the highest profit. That should feed the marketing plan. What happens in my world is in reverse. They go out to conferences, they get sucked up by this shiny new equipment or marketing. They're like, I need new people. And I'm like, well, what about the ones you have? What about training your team? So I have written courses that's like college. And I'm like, your team, if the phone rings, you're paying to acquire that patient. Marta has to get converted to come in. It's lost at the phone. So they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then somebody could be a great provider, but if you don't maximize the revenue potential because you've mastered the consultation, you're losing money. So if they could focus on working on the business, not just in it, and recognize that training your team is the greatest asset that you could do and the greatest investment with the highest return. And I think for any business, right, that you have, your team is the number one. We can't expect them to do something, right? I always say inspect what you expect. Yeah.
Okay, that's so interesting. And it's really, they don't know what they don't know, and they're leaving money on the table. And that's why somebody that's seen it over and over again, such as yourself, can come in and spot it right away and look
100%.
at those gaps. What are some stories that you can share with us? Because I feel stories are so great to illustrate, and you've been sharing a little bit, but is there a specific client that comes to mind that stood out to you in terms of, taking what you had said or what you showed them and putting it in practice and having amazing results?
Yeah, God, I have so many to share, but one specifically that we talk about a lot. There's these 2 husband and wife plastic surgeons in Santa Rosa, California, near Napa Valley. Key opinion leaders, we call them KOLs. Her father was actually wrote a book, The Business of Plastic Surgery. So these are big deal doctors. 2 locations, very, very successful. In business already 25 plus years. So they've been doing this without the work of me.
Yeah.
And they're like family to me now. So I can say that, Paco and Heather really just wanted to scale the medical spa. I think when you're a plastic surgeon, that part of the business is often like overlooked, but it's really passive revenue that when you're not in surgery, you could be on vacation and that's making money. So, Paco and Heather wanted to, they had 2, like I said, 2 locations and really elevate their team. They hired us on as private consultants. I went to their practice twice to train the team for 2 days. And that's really around what does it mean to sell in aesthetics? And how do we convert callers on the phone? How do we master the consultation? How do we overcome objections? Ask the right questions. Why would patients buy? And we looked at all of their services, basically told them what to eliminate, what to do more of, bumping up the price, reducing the time in the room to be more efficient, right? Working on their software so the scheduling was adequate time so we could increase capacity. And then the training piece. And over the course of a year, they grew around $2.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. And, and I think one more that comes to mind, I think in this space, because it's becoming such a commodity
Mhm.
and it's competitive, a lot of people don't charge a consultation fee. So
Mm.
even, right, it's free,
Yeah.
and nobody values anything for free.
Mhm.
And I'm a big stickler, right? That, think of brands people like, right? You walk into the Chanel store, that's not it. You're not getting a Chanel bag for $100 or the Four Seasons, and be the brand that you want. You want to attract people that you want. And so many clients we've had that were despite living, we have clients in Nigeria and South Africa, all over the world. Doesn't matter if you're in a Beverly, that's irrelevant, right? And so, really educating them on their value, their worth.
Mm-hmm.
People will pay money for what they perceive as value.
Yeah.
And by doing that, many of our clients are like, Terri, God, charging for a consultation was the best thing I could have done. I got a higher quality of patient coming in the door and better conversions, and that yielded more money for them. So just a few of the name.
Oh gosh, those are amazing. I love that. And
Thanks.
really tell that you know your stuff. And it makes a difference when you bring in an expert. Now, how exactly do you work with clients? You said you went in and you trained the staff, but you also said you have courses. So if somebody out there that is listening and is in this industry, how do you support people?
Yeah, thank you. And I've started to branch off too I work with a lot of corporations. So I'm a consultant for big companies who need to train sales teams. But we really work three ways. We take on private clients at a minimum 6 or 12-month engagement. We can't really affect change less than that. I've launched, it's called the Scale Method, and it's for people that just are not maybe ready for something so full on, but they need help. So we still audit the practice. They can get one private coaching call with us, and then we'll do 3 big projects for them, whether it's, financial modeling or goal setting or compensation plans. And then if they're really not ready, I have a mentorship, and it's where they can just get access to me and the team once a month. Nice. Those are the main ways. Yeah. And our sales training.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
And you said you have expanded to bigger corporations because at the end of the day, it's sales. For the people that are listening to us that are not in this niche or are not a big corporation, the little things that you have said, I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes such a difference. Like, what questions are you not asking? How are you losing the leads even before you even get to make an offer? Can you give us just some high level tips for people that are, maybe just getting started or have been at it, but sales?
Hey, let me ask you a question. Would you like to be my next guest on the Empowered Woman podcast? Do you have a story you'd like to share? Want more visibility for your business on a show ranked in the top 0.5% in the world? Well, then head on over to martasburke.com/podcast guest for more information.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and again, your podcast has such a diverse crowd, and it doesn't matter what somebody's in, coaching, what you do, sales of a real estate. It doesn't matter. We all, at the end of the day, we are all selling ourselves, right? Are selling ourselves, the result, the outcome, the journey, the experience, all those things. It's not the tangible thing that someone actually does. So I think what's missed is really understanding that sales is a transfer of emotions between two people. Yeah. That's really all it is. And we don't listen with intention just in our adult worlds, right? We're all in this fast-paced environment and in a hurry. We want instant gratification. So we listen to respond versus listening with intention. So if we can understand whatever business you're in, who is your avatar, who's your ideal client, how do you get them? Like, where do they come from? And it's less about ad spend, but there's other ways to do that. But realizing when they come in to your funnel or journey or website or social media, whatever it is, what are the steps you take? What are the discovery questions? Because people want the outcome. Yeah. Right? They buy the result.
Yes.
Which means you have to understand what is their actual pain point, and solve that, and then have conversations around again, what's possible. Being a coach and a consultant is being curious. And how can we help them look at the possibility versus the problem? And so I think for anyone listening to this podcast, whatever vertical and business that you're in, if that is an area of opportunity where you feel like you're spending money in marketing, or you have a good team, but maybe the leads aren't converting, or you're not getting as much as you need, or you want to level up the price and you're afraid, charge 5 times more money, but really make sure you know who you're attracting and that your results, that you're selling the result.
So good. It's the basics. It's the simple things, right? But
I know
it's what we need to focus on. I love that you talked about being a good listener, because that's the other piece. If you're not listening to what the person has to say and you're jumping the gun, then you can't even offer something that's relevant for them, and then that connection isn't made. So listening is very important.
80% it should be listening. I know, but we don't do it.
I know, it's so hard. It's like, I'm so excited to share about my offer.
Yeah.
But they have to be heard to begin with. I love that. Well, you're a very busy, accomplished woman. I also like to know from my guests, what is your lifestyle like? How do you balance all of the things? I know balance is an elusive word, but you do have, a child, you have family. How does that all work out?
Yeah, thank you. And I should be asking you the question. I should be asking you over me with your beautiful family and 3 kids. It's hard. I'm going to say it's really hard. I'm very blessed that I lecture and teach all over the world. And I love to serve. I call it my tribe, Terri's tribe. That said, my daughter will be 12. And so I miss a lot. And that whole adage, there really is no work-life balance, I don't think. I believe I'm also showing her a purpose, and that, women, especially, that we can do whatever we put our minds to. We can be accomplished. We can be a mom and a wife and do a friend and a sister, and we can do all the things. I'm going to be honest. It's probably something I really need to work on for myself. I need to find better balance where I'm kind of giving back to everyone else. But I would just say, I think anybody who's in a successful, right, whatever that is, and, just putting the important things first and realizing that, the work is going to be there the next day.
Thank you so much for being honest, for being transparent and vulnerable, because it's true. It's not easy, and it's a work in progress, right? Whoever says I have it down, probably not being 100% honest, even with themselves.
100%. Yeah. Or you're not doing it well, right? Let's just all women lift each other up and be there to support each other. And, I know that's a lot of what you do, and people having a voice and being seen. It's really important. Everyone talks about this whole imposter syndrome, but there are a lot of people who do great things and just don't know how to get it out there. So,
yeah. Well, speaking of imposter syndrome, that's something that clients ask me a lot. Like, how do you go out and you do it when you're feeling nervous? And to me, it's always been take the action, because the action's going to bring me clarity, and then I can be on the other side and look back instead of just wondering what could be. But I know not everybody is like that. So I like asking and also hearing other people's perspectives in terms of feeling nervous, handling a new client or something different that you hadn't done before. How do you, talk yourself up?
Yeah, I know. Such a great question. Especially, being on stage, big stages with hundreds of people, or even taking a client. I'll say for me, and maybe I was like, I'm a girl from the Midwest and suburbs of Detroit, and I feel like I'm scrappy. Me personally, I feel like I work harder than other people. And what I mean by, not in life, not against other people. What I mean is if I am the first one to say, I don't know how to do this. And if I don't know how to do it, it makes me feel weak and vulnerable. So I will go freaking study it, hire somebody, figure it out. I have spent more money. I am a lifelong learner. So I would say there's always going to be the nervousness. But when you have mastered something and you are completely authentic in yourself, in your being with what you can do and teach, because you've done it. I think the imposter syndrome, and this happens a lot in my space. There are people on stages talking about shit candidly that they've never even done before. Right. And it bothers me, right? I mean, it bothers me. And I'm like, look, people need to hire, right? Go do due diligence on somebody. But really, if you feel like you are an expert in your craft and in your field and you've mastered it, just be you, be your authentic self and everything else will follow. And then the methods you teach. I think there's a method to how to speak, how to capture an audience, not talking at somebody. Those things, I've spent a lot of time learning how to do that. So I think those things aren't just innate by everybody. Right. I think you have to really get some formal training with that stuff. But
absolutely. So get prepared, get coached, right? Practice. Once you have the experience, then trust yourself, right?
Yeah,
and go out
absolutely.
There. I love that.
And or just like you said, look, it's a scary place, but the only getting uncomfortable, you got to get uncomfortable sometimes, right? Do the scary thing, just do the damn thing.
Yes, just go for it. That's how we accomplish things. It's not just sitting and waiting. I love that. Well, on that note, something else that I think is important for us to talk about is challenges and even sometimes criticism or negative experiences with clients. Do you have any stories you can share, or how do you handle those moments when things don't go according to plan?
I just had an experience. I think that I'm the first one very open to any constructive like I welcome it. Some people hate it, but I'm open to constructive criticism and feedback. I want to hear what people have to say or what their perceptions are. I think the first thing when anybody might have somebody unhappy of anything, it's let's seek to understand. There's 2 or 3 sides to every story. Totally. So before blaming whoever it is, whether working with that client or the client or whatever happened, really trying to understand it from the client's perspective. Yes. What were their expectations in the first place? And this goes back to why selling or whatever you're doing in your environment to get clients, whoever is onboarding them or walking them through the journey, those expectations need to be very clear. Right. And that is a 2-way street. I'm not here. I don't have the magic wand to fix your practice, but I can give you the tools and the coaching and the sales and the training framework, right, to do it. People have to do it. So I would say setting proper expectations in the beginning, getting buy-in. Like, Marta, are we on the same page? This is what you're looking for. This is what your commitment is. And this is what mine is. Really helping to close that gap. And then candidly, if somebody is really just unhappy, sometimes it's better to be, just to do the right thing than to be right. And I'm not saying refund people, but whatever that scenario and circumstances is, acknowledging, I always say there's this whole communication, like really acknowledge the client and figure out a path forward.
That's so good insight. And it starts with the expectations. That's how you could potentially avoid. I mean, sometimes problems happen regardless, like you said, but to avoid, to be on the safe side, like, what are your expectations? How can I support you through
How can we support you? Yeah, absolutely. And again, if we don't ask, we don't know. Yeah. And I think we live in a world, we don't ask, which causes misunderstandings.
Right. And this is just communication basics anyways, right? Relationships. It's not just in the workplace.
Yeah. No, right. Yes.
It starts there. I love it. Well, I do know you have some free resources that people can access, and also to learn more about how you work with clients. Can you share with us?
Yes. I would love to provide just a downloadable asset about entrepreneurs and scaling businesses. Yes. And then my website is Terri Ross Consulting. That is also my Instagram. I have a podcast too called In Touch with Terri that I can't wait for you to be on. And that's how people can reach me if you're in the space or just, want additional coaching or women empowerment or whatever it is.
Amazing. Super excited to connect with you on there too. But before we wrap up, I always like to ask all my guests the $1 million question. Well, in your case, it should be $10 million question. Yeah. Because you're helping.
Right, let's raise it up. Yeah.
Let's raise it up. Are you ready?
Yeah. I'm ready. I'm ready for the question.
Okay. So Terri, what is an empowered woman to you?
Oh God, I love this question. Putting me on the spot.
Yes.
I would say fierce, unapologetically yourself, self-aware, and just the level of perseverance and tenacity to just literally soar, right? That nothing can hold you back. and you are not somebody to sit there, you will literally find a way to break through the barriers, and be vulnerable to ask to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. Just the perseverance, determination, and action taking.
Yes. Get it done. Right?
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us again. So you hang out on Instagram the most. Tell us the handle again.
Yes, Instagram. Terri Ross Consulting is my Instagram. That's where I'm there the most, or that's my website. And yes, thank you so much, Marta. This was really great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great. So I'll make sure
Appreciate you guys listening
in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. This is great.
All right, honey. Take care. Talk soon, guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.